At 8:14 a.m., the sky above New York cracked open. Not metaphorically, not politically, physically. Clouds twisted into a spiraling black wound over Manhattan as thousands of people stopped in the streets and looked up at something no human mind could process fast enough. Then the first ship emerged. It was enormous. A circular structure the size of a city slid silently through the storm clouds, blocking out the morning sun. Blue lights rotated beneath its surface like some giant mechanical eye searching for prey. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Construction workers froze on scaffolding. Taxi drivers leaned out windows. A little girl dropped her ice cream in the middle of Times Square and just stared upward. Then every phone in America screamed at once. Emergency alerts flooded screens. Unknown aerial object detected. Seek immediate shelter. The message cut off halfway through. The ship fired. A beam of blinding blue light slammed into the center of Manhattan with enough force to vaporize 3 skyscrapers instantly. Glass exploded across entire city blocks. Fire rolled through the streets. Shockwaves punched people off their feet like ragdolls. And suddenly the world understood. This wasn't first contact. It was an execution. Across the globe, more ships descended through the atmosphere. London, Tokyo, Chicago, Dubai, Los Angeles. Every major city lit up with the same impossible blue fire. News anchors vanished mid-broadcast as buildings collapsed behind them. Fighter jets launched from military bases only to disappear from radar seconds later. Social media flooded with shaky phone footage of giant shadows moving through smoke-filled skies. Humanity had dreamed about alien life for centuries. Nobody imagined it would arrive this angry. Down in Lower Manhattan, Sergeant Daniel Reyes dragged himself out of the wreckage of an overturned armored vehicle, ears ringing so hard he could barely hear the screams around him. The street looked like the end of the world. Burning cars, collapsed buildings, people running through ash-covered smoke while chunks of debris rained from the sky. And above all of it, those ships, hovering silently between the skyscrapers like gods observing insects. "Move!" Reyes shouted, grabbing a terrified civilian off the pavement as another explosion tore through the avenue behind them. Nobody knew where to run. Every direction looked worse than the last. Then something strange happened. The ships stopped firing. Not retreating. Watching. As if they were scanning the city for something. Reyes noticed it immediately. Military instincts. Pattern recognition. The kind of tiny detail people miss when panic takes over. The beams weren't random anymore. The attacks were becoming precise. Calculated. Like the invaders were searching for a target hidden somewhere inside New York itself. And then the radio on Reyes' shoulder crackled to life. All units fall back immediately. Static swallowed the voice. Then another transmission cut through. One sentence. Completely calm. They found her. Reyes froze. Who found who? He muttered. No answer. Just static. Another explosion shook the street hard enough to shatter windows overhead. People screamed and scattered as debris crashed onto abandoned vehicles below. Reyes turned toward the smoke and saw a child standing alone in the middle of the avenue. A little girl, maybe 10 years old, barefoot, white blonde hair blowing through the ash-filled wind. And her eyes, bright blue, not reflective, glowing. For a moment, the entire street seemed to go silent around her. Even the chaos felt distant. The girl slowly lifted her head toward the massive alien ship hovering above Manhattan. Then every light underneath the ship suddenly intensified. Reyes felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. Something about this was wrong. Very wrong. The little girl raised her hand toward the sky. And the alien ship answered. A deafening vibration rolled across the city as blue energy pulsed beneath the craft. Soldiers nearby raised weapons instinctively. Civilians stumbled backward in terror. Then every ship above New York turned toward her at the exact same time. Not the military. Not the city. Her. What the hell? Reyes whispered. The girl looked terrified now. Like she hadn't meant for this to happen. Then the largest ship in the sky began charging something enormous beneath its center. The air itself started shaking. People dropped to their knees covering their ears. Car alarms screamed endlessly across the avenue. Windows shattered for blocks. Reyes' survival instincts kicked in hard. He sprinted toward the girl. Around him, soldiers shouted conflicting orders. Civilians ran in every direction. Somewhere overhead, fighter jets roared between skyscrapers seconds before blue flashes swallowed them whole. But Reyes kept running. Because for reasons he couldn't explain, he knew the entire invasion suddenly revolved around that child. And deep down, he felt something even worse. The aliens weren't trying to conquer Earth anymore. They were trying to erase her before humanity reached her first. Reyes lunged forward just as the sky exploded with light. The girl screamed. Every alien ship above Manhattan froze instantly. Dead still. No weapons. No movement. Nothing. The entire battlefield stopped breathing. 47 seconds began. And humanity had absolutely no idea those 47 seconds were about to change the galaxy forever. The invasion wasn't slowing down. It was learning. Within 20 minutes of first contact, half the world's satellites were gone. Military networks collapsed one after another. Entire governments disappeared behind walls of static and fire while those massive alien ships hovered over major cities like executioners waiting for permission to strike again. And somehow, the attacks were becoming more precise. No wasted shots. No random destruction. The aliens were targeting infrastructure with surgical accuracy now. Bridges, data centers, naval ports, communication hubs. It was as if they'd studied humanity for decades before arriving. Maybe they had. Inside NORAD's underground command center, General Evelyn Ross stared at the tactical screens in disbelief as red warning markers spread across the globe faster than her staff could process them. Status on Europe. Dark. Pacific Fleet. No response. Civilian evacuation. The young officer hesitated. There are no safe zones left. That silence hit the room harder than any explosion. Around her, analysts worked through exhaustion and panic, trying to hold together what remained of Earth's defenses. Some hadn't left their stations in 12 straight hours. Others were quietly texting family members they knew they'd probably never see again. Still, nobody walked away. Because humanity had finally realized the truth. This wasn't a war over territory. It was survival. Then the screen changed. A live feed from Manhattan appeared across the command center monitors. The little girl. Every surviving intelligence agency on Earth was now tracking her. The footage showed her sitting silently inside a temporary military shelter beneath the city while doctors, translators, and armed soldiers watched from a careful distance. No one knew her name. No one knew what she was. But every alien ship over North America had repositioned itself around New York since the 47-second blackout. That couldn't be coincidence. General Ross leaned closer to the screen. Zoom in on her eyes. The image sharpened. Blue. Not human blue. Glowing. One of the intelligence officers swallowed hard. We intercepted something before the European satellites went down. He pulled up fragments of decoded alien transmissions across the main display. Most of it was unreadable, except for one repeating phrase. Locate the conduit. Another phrase followed seconds later. Terminate before synchronization failure. Nobody in the room spoke, because suddenly the impossible possibility became real. The aliens weren't invading Earth for resources. They were hunting that child. And if an interstellar empire was terrified of one little girl, humanity had just stepped into something far bigger than an invasion. Thousands of miles away, the situation on the ground kept getting worse. Chicago burned through the night. Tokyo lost power across the entire metropolitan zone. In Houston, civilians armed with hunting rifles and construction equipment fought alien drones street by street after military forces were overwhelmed. And that was the moment the invaders made their first real mistake. They underestimated how humans react when cornered. On paper, humanity should have collapsed immediately. The Vacor Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their technology was centuries beyond anything Earth possessed. Their ships could level cities in seconds. But humans didn't behave the way the Dominion expected. People adapted. Fast. Retired combat medics opened emergency shelters inside subway tunnels. Civilian truckers became supply lines after highways were destroyed. Volunteer coders launched pirate communication networks when satellites failed. In Atlanta, a group of ordinary construction workers used demolition equipment to bring down an alien walker twice the size of a tank. No orders. No backup. Just instinct. The Dominion's battle algorithms couldn't predict that kind of chaos. And slowly, the invaders began noticing something deeply unsettling about humanity. Humans kept fighting even after losing. That wasn't normal among intelligent species. Most civilizations preserved themselves. Humans protected each other instead. Sometimes irrationally. Sometimes suicidally. Always violently. Back beneath Manhattan, Sergeant Daniel Reyes watched the little girl carefully from across the shelter room while exhausted soldiers argued nearby. She's connected to them. She's a weapon. She shut down the fleet. Or she brought them here. Nobody trusted her. But nobody could ignore what happened in the sky either. 47 seconds. The most advanced invasion force in galactic history had frozen solid because of this child. And now the aliens were willing to burn Earth apart to get her back. The girl finally looked up at Reyes. For the first time, she spoke. Not loudly. Barely above a whisper. They're afraid. The room went silent. Reyes stepped closer carefully. Who's afraid? Her glowing eyes shifted toward the ceiling. The ones in the sky. A chill ran through every soldier in the shelter. Because fear wasn't something invaders were supposed to feel. Then the emergency lights flickered red. An alarm erupted through the underground bunker. One of the officers grabbed a headset, face draining of color as he listened. What is it? Reyes demanded. The officer looked up slowly. They found us. The entire shelter shook violently. Dust exploded from the ceiling as a deafening impact rocked the streets above. Civilians screamed. Soldiers raised weapons instinctively. Somewhere overhead, something massive was moving directly over Manhattan. Hunting. The girl suddenly grabbed Reyes' wrist hard enough to stop him cold. Her expression changed. Not fear this time. Recognition. And when she spoke again, her voice trembled. He came himself. Far above the city, clouds twisted around a colossal alien warship descending through the smoke. Larger than the others. Darker. Covered in glowing symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Inside that ship was the being responsible for exterminating entire civilizations across the galaxy. The commander of the Vacor Dominion invasion fleet. And for the first time since arriving on Earth, he was no longer focused on conquering humanity. He was desperate to stop something from waking up inside it. The alien commander should have won the moment he arrived over Manhattan. That's what terrified him. Because despite overwhelming firepower, despite orbital superiority, despite humanity losing city after city, Earth still refused to break. And now something impossible was happening inside the Dominion fleet. Confusion. Across the skies above Earth, alien ships began drifting out of formation by fractions of a second. Tiny delays. Minor coordination errors. Barely noticeable to humans. But to the Vacor? It was catastrophic. The Dominion's strength came from perfect synchronization. Every pilot, soldier, and warship was connected through a living neural network directed by biological conduits engineered for one purpose. Absolute unity. No hesitation. No fear. No independent thought. That was how they conquered galaxies. And somehow, that little girl had interrupted the connection. Inside NORAD, analysts were finally piecing together fragments of the truth while exhausted technicians worked beneath flickering lights and failing systems. Dr. Elias Mercer stood in front of a tactical display covered in attack patterns, eyes bloodshot from 40 straight hours without sleep. "Look at this," he said quietly. The room gathered around. He enlarged footage from the 4 to 7 second blackout. Every alien ship froze simultaneously. But Earth's chaos didn't. Human pilots kept maneuvering. Soldiers kept firing. Civilians kept moving. Mercer pointed at the screen. "That's their weakness." General Ross crossed her arms. "Explain." They're too connected. Nobody spoke. Mercer pulled up combat simulations from previous alien invasions recovered through intercepted archives. Entire civilizations collapsed within hours because their militaries depended on centralized command structures. Once the Dominion disrupted leadership, resistance died instantly. But humans fought differently. Messily. Independently. Violently. And worst of all for the Dominion, creatively. Mercer turned back toward the room. Humans are trained by chaos. We improvise under pressure. We adapt when plans fail. He swallowed hard. They don't. At that exact moment, another emergency transmission arrived from Chicago. Civilian resistance fighters had destroyed 2 alien ground carriers using homemade explosives hidden inside abandoned subway tunnels. No military oversight. No authorization. Just ordinary people making impossible decisions in real time. General Ross stared at the report. A slow realization spread across her face. The aliens weren't struggling because humanity was technologically advanced. They were struggling because humans were unpredictable. And unpredictability was poison to a perfectly synchronized empire. Thousands of feet below Manhattan, Sergeant Reyes sat across from the girl inside the dim emergency shelter while distant explosions shook dust from the ceiling. The soldiers around them were nervous now. Not scared of the aliens. Scared of her. Because every time she looked upward, the ships above the city shifted position. Like they could feel her thinking. Reyes studied her carefully. She looked exhausted. Small. Almost fragile. Nothing about her resembled the being responsible for stopping an alien fleet mid-invasion. "What's your name?" he asked finally. The girl hesitated, then answered softly, "Lyra." It was the first human word she'd spoken willingly. Reyes nodded slowly. "Why are they afraid of you?" Her glowing eyes drifted toward the bunker walls. "They're afraid of what happens without me." That answer hit harder than expected. Before Reyes could respond, alarms suddenly erupted throughout the shelter again. A communications officer sprinted into the room. "They're attacking each other." Everyone froze. "What?" The officer pulled up live drone footage from above Manhattan. One of the alien destroyers was firing directly into another Dominion ship. The room exploded into confusion. That's impossible. Malfunction. Civil war. But Reyes noticed something worse. The ships weren't malfunctioning. They were hesitating. For the first time since arriving on Earth, the Dominion fleet looked uncertain. And uncertainty spread fast in battle. Across the globe, human resistance fighters began noticing the same thing. Alien patrols missing obvious targets. Delayed reactions. Friendly fire incidents. Small cracks spreading through an empire built on perfect control. Then came the moment that changed everything. A damaged Marine Recon squad outside Denver captured a living alien officer during a surprise ambush. Military translators rushed to interrogate him before he could die from his injuries. At first, the alien refused to speak. Then they showed him footage of humans fighting through the invasion. Civilians rescuing strangers from collapsed buildings. Soldiers making last stands even after losing communication. Parents shielding children during orbital strikes. The alien stared at the screen in visible confusion. Finally, he whispered something in his own language. The translators went pale. General Ross received the decoded phrase minutes later. "They are uncoupled." Another translation followed immediately after. "How are they still functioning?" That single sentence changed the war. The Dominion genuinely could not understand humanity. Every intelligent species they'd conquered evolved toward collective efficiency over time. Emotion became secondary. Individual instinct became obsolete. But humans still operated like predators. Independent. Emotional. Dangerous under stress. And worst of all, the harder humanity suffered, the faster it adapted. Back inside Manhattan, Lyra suddenly stood up so fast it startled everyone in the shelter. Her eyes widened in terror. "He knows now." Reyes rose immediately. Who knows what? But she was already backing away from the room. The commander. The bunker lights flickered violently. Then every screen inside the shelter turned blue at once. An alien signal had overridden the entire network. A massive figure appeared across the monitors. Tall, armored, inhuman. The commander of the Dominion fleet. Even through distorted transmissions, his presence felt suffocating. He stared directly at Lyra. Then he spoke in flawless English. "You were supposed to remain hidden." The room fell silent. Reyes stepped in front of the girl instinctively. The commander's black eyes shifted toward him slowly. And for the first time since the invasion began, an alien looked at a human being with genuine caution. Not hatred. Not superiority. Caution. Then the commander delivered the sentence that sent fear through every person in that bunker. If humanity learns what it truly is, your species will become unstoppable. The transmission cut instantly. Silence crashed over the room. No one moved, because suddenly the invasion no longer felt like humanity's extinction. It felt like the galaxy's last attempt to prevent humanity from becoming something far worse. The alien commander gave the order humanity was never supposed to hear. Kill the conduit. Across Earth, every Dominion ship changed direction at once. Not toward military bases. Not toward nuclear silos. Toward Manhattan. And suddenly the invasion stopped looking like a conquest. It looked like panic. Inside the underground shelter, the walls trembled as the massive warship above the city descended lower through the clouds. Dust poured from the ceiling. Emergency lights flashed red across terrified faces while soldiers rushed to defensive positions. Sergeant Reyes grabbed Lyra by the arm. "We're moving. Now." But the girl wouldn't move. Her glowing eyes were locked upward. "He's coming himself," she whispered. Then the bunker exploded. The blast threw bodies across the corridor as steel doors bent inward like paper. Smoke flooded the underground shelter. Somewhere behind them, civilians screamed in the dark while soldiers opened fire at shapes moving through the debris. Alien drones. Dozens of them. Fast. Silent. Their black armored bodies crawled across walls and ceilings like mechanical predators, blue energy slicing through barricades as Marines fought desperately to hold the line. Reyes fired point-blank into the nearest drone, sparks erupting across the hallway. "Get her out of here." The shelter collapsed into chaos. Military command was gone now. No organized retreat. No coordinated defense. Just humans fighting on instinct. And somehow, that made them even harder to stop. A wounded combat engineer rigged explosives by hand while bleeding out. A subway maintenance crew guided civilians through forgotten tunnels beneath Manhattan. Off-duty firefighters grabbed rifles from dead soldiers and joined the fight without hesitation. The Dominion had studied human warfare for decades. But they never understood the most dangerous thing about humanity. Humans become terrifying when protecting someone weaker than themselves. And every person in that bunker had decided Lyra mattered. Even without understanding why. Reyes pushed through smoke-filled corridors with Lyra beside him as the sounds of battle echoed behind them. The deeper they moved underground, the stranger the city became. Old maintenance tunnels. Abandoned train platforms. Flooded service routes buried beneath New York for generations. Then Lyra suddenly stopped walking. Reyes turned back sharply. "What is it?" Her face had gone pale. "He found us." A low vibration rolled through the tunnel. Not an explosion. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. The darkness ahead slowly filled with blue light. Then he appeared. The Dominion commander. 7 feet tall beneath black armor covered in glowing alien symbols. His presence alone seemed to crush the air around him. Behind him, damaged drones dragged themselves through the tunnel like hunting animals. Reyes raised his rifle instantly. The commander barely looked at him. His attention stayed locked on Lyra. "You don't understand what you are doing," the alien said calmly. Lyra stepped backward. "You lied to them." The commander's expression darkened slightly. "I protected the galaxy." Reyes tightened his grip on the rifle. Funny way to protect people. The commander finally looked at him. And for the first time since the invasion began, humanity saw fear inside alien eyes. Not fear of weapons. Fear of potential. You call yourselves civilized, the commander said quietly. But your species evolves through suffering. Every war strengthens you. Every disaster sharpens you. Another tremor shook the tunnel overhead. The commander took one slow step forward. The galaxy survived because humanity never reached the stars. That sentence hit harder than any weapon. Reyes glanced at Lyra. Tell me what's really happening. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. I'm connected to them, she whispered. All of them. Suddenly everything clicked. The fleet synchronization. The blackout. The panic. Lyra wasn't just part of the Dominion network. She was the center of it. And if humanity protected her, the Empire lost control. The commander raised his hand slowly. Every drone in the tunnel activated at once. Blue energy lit the darkness. This ends now. Then Manhattan shook with the force of a massive explosion overhead. The tunnel ceiling cracked open. Sunlight burst through collapsing concrete. And human fighter jets screamed across the sky above the city. Reinforcements. Against all odds, humanity had regrouped. Across the world, resistance networks had coordinated simultaneous counterattacks after identifying weaknesses in Dominion synchronization. Human forces stopped fighting like isolated nations. Now they fought like one species. In orbit, damaged alien destroyers collided after losing formation. On the ground, resistance cells ambushed confused Dominion patrols. And in Manhattan, thousands of civilians flooded the streets to protect evacuation routes despite orbital bombardment still raining around them. The commander realized the truth too late. Humanity wasn't collapsing under pressure. It was unifying. His expression changed instantly. For the first time, the calm vanished. Impossible, he whispered. Then Lyra screamed. A pulse of blue energy erupted outward from her body with enough force to shatter every light in the tunnel. The commander staggered backward. Above Manhattan, every alien ship froze again. Dead still. No movement. No weapons. Nothing. 47 seconds. Human pilots reacted first. Missiles launched from rooftops and surviving aircraft carriers. Resistance fighters detonated captured alien reactors hidden beneath the city. Civilian hackers overloaded Dominion targeting systems using stolen signal frequencies. And everywhere across Earth, humans attacked with pure controlled chaos. Not waiting for permission. Not waiting for orders. Just acting. The Dominion fleet tried reconnecting. Too late. Explosions erupted across the sky as disabled alien ships collided with one another. One massive destroyer tilted sideways before crashing directly into the Hudson River in a wall of fire visible for miles. The commander stared upward in horror. His perfect empire was breaking apart. Not because humans were stronger. Because humans moved faster inside chaos than the Dominion ever could. Then the 47 seconds ended. The alien ships came back online. But the battle was already lost. Across the globe, the impossible was happening. The Vacor Dominion was retreating. And standing in the ruins of Manhattan, surrounded by smoke and falling ash, humanity realized something terrifying. The galaxy hadn't attacked Earth because humans were weak. It attacked because one day, humans might become unstoppable. The war ended with silence. Not victory speeches. Not celebrations. Silence. For the first time in 48 hours, the skies above Earth were empty. No alien destroyers hovering over cities. No blue fire tearing through skyscrapers. No emergency broadcasts screaming through broken speakers. Just smoke drifting across ruined streets while humanity tried to understand how it was still alive. New York looked unrecognizable. Entire blocks had collapsed into burning craters. Military wreckage littered the avenues. The Hudson still boiled where the alien carrier crashed during the retreat. And standing in the middle of all of it, humans were already rebuilding. Strangers pulled survivors from rubble with bleeding hands. National Guard convoys distributed food beside shattered buildings. Construction crews worked through the night under portable floodlights while exhausted volunteers cleared debris one broken piece at a time. The Dominion expected humanity to collapse after trauma. Instead, humanity organized. That frightened the galaxy more than the war itself ever could. Sergeant Daniel Reyes stood atop the ruins of a collapsed overpass overlooking Manhattan as rescue helicopters thundered overhead. His uniform was torn black with ash. Blood dried across one side of his face. He barely noticed anymore. Below him, Lyra watched humans moving through the destruction in stunned silence. Children helping strangers. Doctors refusing to rest. People who had lost everything still sharing supplies with each other. Finally, she spoke. They should hate each other. Reyes looked at her quietly. Why? Because they are suffering. That answer lingered in the cold morning air. Then Reyes gave a tired smile. Yeah, he said. That's usually when humans become the most dangerous. Far above Earth, deep within retreating Dominion space, panic spread through the Empire for the first time in recorded history. Entire fleets had withdrawn without orders. Synchronization failures continued spreading across military networks. Conquered worlds were beginning to revolt after witnessing humanity survive the impossible. And worse, Dominion soldiers were asking questions. How did a primitive species resist the Vacor? Why did humans keep fighting after losing entire cities? Why would civilians willingly sacrifice themselves for strangers? The Empire had no answer. Because the Dominion had spent thousands of years eliminating individuality from its people in pursuit of perfect order. Humanity evolved the opposite way. Messy, emotional, independent, uncontrollable. That chaos was supposed to make humans weak. Instead, it made them adaptable. And now the galaxy had seen it firsthand. Back on Earth, world leaders gathered inside an emergency summit built beneath Geneva. Military commanders, scientists, intelligence agencies, every surviving government wanted answers from Lyra. What was she? Why did the Dominion fear humanity? And why did the commander look terrified before retreating? The room fell silent as Lyra stood before them. For a moment, she almost looked afraid to speak. Then she finally told humanity the truth. Thousands of years ago, ancient galactic civilizations studied developing species across the stars searching for patterns of evolution. Most intelligent races followed predictable paths. The safer they became, the less aggressive they evolved. Conflict faded. Survival instincts weakened. Individuality slowly disappeared in favor of collective stability. Humanity never followed that pattern. Even after building civilizations, humans kept adapting through hardship. Wars created innovation. Disasters created unity. Pressure created resilience. The harder humanity suffered, the faster humanity evolved. One of the generals leaned forward slowly. You're saying the Dominion attacked us because they were afraid of what we might become? Lyra's glowing eyes lowered. No, she whispered. They attacked because they already knew. The room went completely still. Then she revealed the final truth. Long before the Dominion rose to power, ancient alien observers predicted humanity would eventually surpass every major civilization in the galaxy, not through superior technology, but through psychological evolution. Humans could endure levels of chaos that broke other species completely. Fear didn't always weaken humans. Sometimes it focused them. Pain didn't always destroy humans. Sometimes it united them. And once humans discovered a threat larger than themselves, they stopped fighting each other long enough to become terrifying. That was why Earth had been isolated. Why humanity had never been contacted peacefully. Why the Dominion tried to erase them before reaching the stars. Because every advanced civilization in the galaxy carried the same ancient warning. If humans ever unite, nothing will stop them. Days later, humanity intercepted the final transmission from the fleeing Dominion commander. Not a threat. A warning. The damaged message echoed across military networks worldwide. You do not understand what has awakened. Then the signal ended forever. Weeks passed. Earth slowly recovered. But something fundamental had changed. For the first time in history, humanity no longer looked up at the stars with curiosity alone. Now it looked upward with purpose. Shipyards expanded around the clock. Global militaries shared technology openly. Former rival nations began building unified defense fleets together. Humanity had survived first contact. Now humanity was preparing for what came next. And deep in orbit above Earth, Lyra stood beside Reyes aboard the first reconstructed defense platform as hundreds of workers moved around them. She stared out toward the stars silently. "There will be others," she said softly. Reyes crossed his arms. "Good." Lyra looked at him in confusion. He smiled faintly. "Because next time, humanity won't be trapped on the ground." The camera pulls back slowly. Earth glowing beneath massive orbital construction yards. New warships rising above the planet. Alien transmissions spreading panic across distant star systems. And somewhere far beyond the darkness, entire empires beginning to realize the same horrifying truth. The species they tried to exterminate in 4 to 7 seconds was about to enter the galaxy angry. Fade to black. One day, the stars will learn why humans were never supposed to survive.